In ancient Rome, you had a system of two political camps. You had the optimales, or you can translate in English as the optimals, the best, and you had the populares, or roughly translated in English, the common people or the commoners or the population. Now, the optimales versus the populares. The optimales were the businessmen that lived in the urban centers of the Roman Empire, and those Greek-speaking men, because ancient Greek was the spoken language of the Roman Empire, it was also the commercial language of the world at the time. Those Greek-speaking men, they had their interest in trade. Trade had to be secure. So import had to be secured, export had to be secured, stable prices throughout the Roman Empire, also good trade relations with the other kingdoms and empires outside of the Roman jurisdiction. So the optimalists, their main concern was that the monetary policy or the currency of Rome remained in circulation. That was their main objective. The populares, those men often came from the rural regions of the empire, because remember, the majority of the people in the Roman Empire lived in rural regions, in tiny villages surrounded by farms. And the populares realized, hold on a minute, we can talk about business and trade as much as we want, or as long as we want, but eventually the population needs to be fed. Therefore, agriculture must be successful. So we must have successful agricultural policies, and also we need to compensate the common people, who are the overwhelming majority of the Roman Empire, because without the input of those common people, we won't have a Roman Empire and we won't have a world system. So the optimalists were more concerned with businesses and how businesses remained safe, while the populares were more concerned about welfare for the common people in case an economic crisis hits a region. Because remember, the Roman Empire was quite big. So, for example, if in Lusitania, which today we call Portugal, there was a recession, that didn't have to imply that the recession would continue all the way to Dacia. Dacia is what today call Romania. So the populares, they seemed to be there for the people. And the optimalists seemed to only be there for the business folks. So the optimalists would be seen as the enemy of the people, while the populares would be seen as a friend for the people. But that was an illusion. In reality, both the optimalists and the populares were there for one purpose. They wanted the Roman Empire to continue. Because both the optimalists as well as the populares needed the functioning of the Roman Empire for their estates to remain safe. So both wanted a secure monetary policy and both wanted trade to continue. The optimales, however, focused more on the interests of businesses and the rich, while the populares focused more on, well, the needs of the common people and sometimes also the slaves, who are a very important force of labor in the Roman Empire. Now, the reason I am telling you all of this is because nothing has changed when it comes to politics. You can see the populares as the left, while the optimalists are considered the right. Now, in United States politics, the left and right paradigm is a bit different than in Europe. Okay? But still, this left versus right wing duality is an illusion. It's an illusion that the pagan rulers of this world enforce on the public to keep them trapped. And here's why they're doing it. For a very simple reason. When people are divided within two camps, they will feel secured in one of those two camps. If there are two camps, and each camp has subdivisions, then there's an illusion of choice. If you have camp, let's say you have the populares or the left, and in the left you have many subdivisions. And each subdivision has good and bad so-called qualities. Now, if you don't want to belong to the right, then you belong to the left. And in the left you have many subdivisions, so you can always choose which division you want to belong in. But the left is still the left. And the left's on the left because of the existence of the right. The same, if you don't want to be part of the left, but you're part of the right, in the right you also have subdivisions. But in reality, right wing and left wing are both part of the same bird. Because as you know, every natural bird out there has two wings. Okay? Maybe there are birds with more than two wings, but as far as I can tell, every bird out there has two wings. Whether it's a dove or an eagle, it has two wings. A left wing and a right wing. And both the left wing and the right wing are there to make sure that the bird can function. So, the pagan rulers of the world, they understand this. Just like a natural bird has two wings and each wing has feathers, the pagan rulers of the world developed this dualistic system of left versus right. The left has its feathers and the right has its feathers. And what the pagan rulers do is they have their agents who are the leaders of the feathers of each wing. So in the left wing you have feathers, subdivisions, there you have leaders of the subdivisions. And in the right you have feathers or subdivisions. And the leaders of all those feathers, they debate one another, they even fight one another, and that's how the masses are drawn into those subcategories. And then you have the centric view, which kind of sees itself as a combination of the two, but it's still a form of duality, because you are between the two, so you still need the duality to call yourself a centrist. And here's the thing. They enforce this duality by having the leaders of those feathers competing with one another, but the competition is fake. Because all those leaders of those feathers are hired actors. They're just playing a game and they all know about it. But the common folks out there don't know it's just a game. For them it's real. So one would say, I'm a leftist, but I'm not into communism. Then another would say, I'm a leftist, but I'm more in a Marxist view, not in that much socialistic view. Someone else would say, I belong to the right wing, but I'm not heading towards fascism. Others would say, I'm a right wing, and I'm more towards an autocratic form of government. So you have all these factions, all these, I would say, feathers competing with one another, but the competitions are fake. But the common people out there think it's real. So their families, their relationships are divided by those divisions. And that's how the pagan rulers of the world keep the human population divided. Because when they are divided, they will seek relief from each other by sticking to those within their own camp. You get what I'm saying here? So, if you have the population divided in two main camps, and each camp is divided in sub-camps, and if everyone wants to belong to their sub-camp by being relieved from the other camps, then you have the perfect scenario in which everyone is distracted and nobody really has a clue what's going on. One thing you have today that they didn't have in ancient Rome was you have so-called national elections. Each 4 or each 6 years, depending on the country where you live, you have elections where they can either choose a prime minister, if the country is a kingdom, you have some of them still, or if it's a republic, you can both choose your prime minister and your president. And these elections are like fertility rituals, or like sex rituals. For example, have you ever wondered why they call the office of the President of the United States the Oval Office? What does Oval refer to? Do your own research. Look, those elections each 4 or 6 years are like fertility rituals, are like sex rituals. People want a release of the tensions that have built up past 4 years. They want relief. They don't want to deal with stuff, but they have to deal with stuff. So instead of initiating a war every 10 or 15 years in which a large sum of the population dies, you give them a virtual war each 4 years. So each 4 years they have to choose a candidate. And from all the factions, two remain, and from the two, one has to disappear. So one has to take the loss. And then the winner is inaugurated as a new leader. And that's how the ritual works. Now people had their chance to fight, so they have to deal with the loss if their candidate didn't win. And if they've won, they get the sweet victory that the candidate has won. But now comes the outworking. How does it work out? And then of course there's going to be, how would I say? There's going to be disappointment. After the first year, often, there are going to be hardcore supporters of the new candidate who became president or prime minister. But eventually people are going to see through it and realize, hold on a minute, it's the same thing. But then they think, hold on a minute, there are not elections coming up. So the cycle begins again and again. So the dualistic right versus left-wing paradigm, combined with this 4-year fertility cycle of elections, is the formula that keeps the modern day masses trapped. Even those of the so-called alternative media that so-called see through the left versus right paradigm, even they are trapped. And I'll tell you why they are trapped. Those folks in the alternative media, they talk against the left versus right wing paradigm, okay? But do they have any alternative? They don't. Haven't you noticed that often the alternative media often highlights the corruption and conspiracies of the powers that be, but they never ever come with a workable long-term solution that will benefit the majority of mankind? Or if they are conspiracy theorists that use the name of Christ, they will come with a doomsday thinking, Christ is coming back soon, so be ready, or else. Haven't you noticed that they never come up with a long-term beneficial solution? That shows you that they are trapped. That shows you that they are controlled opposition. Because they rely on the existence of the corruption to exist. Because without the existence of the corruption, there wouldn't be any alternative media. An alternative to what? So their foundation is resistance. And resistance can only exist if there's something you're resisting against. Look, this right versus left wing paradigm, it's a trap. I'm telling you, it's a trap. Because look at this way. The big rulers of the world, they have their one world government already. The one world government has been in existence since 200 BC. Since the ancient Greek Empire, you had this Apollonistic world order. This Greek cult has been governing the world ever since. So there has been world peace. Peace for the elite and the local aristocracy. Now, their peace depends on the masses being divided, distracted, and in anxiety. So, from the perspective of common people, or just people in general, there is no peace. But they think the peace is only meant for the Greek cult or the pagan rulers and the local aristocracy that sold themselves out to the Greek cult. For them, it's world peace. For them, things keep working and functioning. But their peace, their ease depends on the masses being in a state of anxiety. So world peace has been here since 200 BC. So there is already a one world government in place. It's not the common government that you see, like the municipality or the province or the state. It's the shadow government. The shadow government is a one world government. It has been here since 200 BC. So all these conspiracy theories saying that, oh, the powers that be want a one world government. They want to enforce a new world order. It's all BS. There's no new world order coming because the one world government has already been here for centuries. But they want to convince you that the one world government is coming while it's been here all along. It has been here before Christ was born. Look, what's going on now is that the pagan rulers of the world, or the Greek cult, as you also call them, they, together with the local aristocracies within the regions, because countries only exist to the common people, the pagan rulers think in regions or provinces. The local aristocracies in the regions, together with the pagan rulers, they want to keep the human population in a state of anxiety, thinking that something bad is about to happen, and they don't need to anticipate the bad that's about to happen. That's what they are doing. That's how they've been doing it since 200 BC. And that's the only way they can do it. That's the only way they can do it. So, now you understand why Christ said, make sure that no man deceive you. Christ even said that many would say the time is near, the end will come. Christ even told you to beware of people that keep saying the time is near. Christ said it. Because here's the thing, the pagan rulers of the world know very well that when Christ returns, it's over for them. They'll be deported to the lake of fire. But they don't know when Christ will return. They don't know when God's plan has come to full fruition. They don't know that. So they are in an anxious state because they don't know when their rule will end. They know the rule will end anyway, but they don't know when. So they are transferring this fright onto the common people. And that's how they remain in peace. So world peace that has been here since 200 BC depends on the masses being in an anxious state. I hope this video has clarified things for you. So those conspiracy theorists talk about there's going to be a new world order, it's going to be this and that. They're either deceived, people that are deceived, and they don't know that the evil powers are using them to deceive others, or they are paid shills. Because anyone who would evaluate the situation carefully would realize, hold on a minute, this Greek cult, these Apollo worshippers, they've been running things since 200 BC. Anyone who look at the situation carefully would realize, hold on a minute, there's no new world order. It's just the Greek cult continuing their existence by keeping the human population in anxiety. And this left versus right-wing paradigm is the tool they've been using since ancient times. And the tool has been perfected by these fertility rituals called elections. Now, you can vote in an election for social reasons. For example, If you voted, you can always say to the common people around you, I voted, I've invested, and therefore I have a right to speak. You can use it for social reasons to vote, as long as you know that the vote is not what determines the outcome. It's when you have faith in the vote that you are in darkness. Am I telling you to vote? That's up to you. I'm just pointing out to you what's the bigger picture behind voting and all of that. Well, that's it for now. I agree with Christ will operate in the real peace. Be at peace.